So I'll initially request everyone to put their mics on mute. So probably after half an hour, if there's any questions, people can take up. Can you see my screen clearly? And
Yes.
Is my voice
yes, we
audible?
can see.
Can someone
Yes,
respond?
you're audible,
Yeah.
and we can
Fine.
see the screen.
Thanks. So is the chat box is also accessible for these participants?
Sorry, I didn't get you what you said.
Chat box is accessible to these participants,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Okay. I'll request this. Initially, I'll request all the participants to please put your name and background. So are you a general audience? Just wanted to know if you're a general audience or you're coming from an agriculture background or you're a farmer. So accordingly, probably it would be help me to mend this presentation accordingly. So I'll take 1 minute for you people to share that in the chat box.
Participants, you can just mention your current activity. Mr. Anil and Bhikshapati and others, Dinesh, Rahim. Or Mr. Prithvi, I think you can ask during the questions only.
Fine, thanks.
That'll save the time.
Yeah. Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, now it is visible.
So initially, I'll just share about my background. My name is Prithvi. I'm currently operating as a regional agronomist for South at Grow Indigo. So I have an experience about 8 years of professional experience in agriculture and 10 years of a research experience. So I have a bachelor's degree in agricultural science and a master's degree in water science from Regenerative. So regenerative agriculture and carbon farming is something I started doing as a part of my livelihood, as to say. I don't come from a pure agriculture background. I am just like anyone current generation. I'm a millennial coming from a peri-urban region, and then with passion got into agriculture sector and then started working in this area. So why regenerative agriculture? So as you know, we see our every day, every point, every minute dealing with these chemicals, pollution, climate change, temperature. So we are in the month of March, about 20th March today, and we see already summer has approached, and we are struggling with the good amount of temperature. So recently Telangana faced heat waves. So Nizamabad recorded the highest temperature of 41 degrees. So in the month of March, so you can understand there is a urgent requirement to address this climate change. So regenerative agriculture is one part of them. So the photo you're seeing is clipped by me at Srikakulam as a part of an agroforestry project from my previous tenure at an organization. So I have worked with several organizations. Currently, I'm with Grow Indigo, but my area of expertise, my work, I did not change. So I'll jump into this presentation immediately. So our agenda of discussion flows like this. We'll have an open remark, then followed by the GHG scenarios globally, Indian, and then we'll jump into regenerative agriculture, carbon farming, and then understand the practices, then related to the carbon markets, understand a little bit about the registries. Then we'll align it with the sustainable development goals to see whether it is actually influencing the farmers' life. Then we'll have one round of questions. So can you see this statement? Yes.
Yes,
so,
we can see.
So I think this is a bold statement, but still it makes sense for me, at least for me, because I've been in this sector for 10 years. So I'll say, as a part of agriculture, I'm an agriculturist. I am the major cause and a key victim and a powerful solution for this climate change. That's the reason I started working on climate change, because I am the culprit for this temperature change, climate change. In sense, every life that is related to agriculture is the major anthropogenic pressure for climate change, as well as they are the primary key victims, and they are the solution is in their hands. Why? I am calling we as in culprit. So if you see globally, in 2014, there's a data published by FAO. Agriculture, forest, and other land uses sector contribute about 25% to the global GHG emissions, and it is increasing about 8% annually compared to 2005. 2005, the increasing level was little low, but later it increased. So the three GHG gas emissions are carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. So you can clearly see the data. So we are very much evident. We know the terminology of carbon dioxide. But if you see, methane is 28 times more lethal, more potent than carbon dioxide. Nitrous oxide is 265 times more potent to carbon dioxide. So that is the reason we calculate the GHG emissions in carbon equivalents. So this is one comparison I tried to make here. So majority of these emissions come from developing countries because of their population and their dietary preferences. So if you see, developed countries like North America, Europe, Africa is under developing country, also contribute, but Asia is contributing about 44%. And India is one of them. So why India is one of them? If you see on the right side, so if you see major agriculture contributors and the subset of agriculture contributors is livestock. 40% of GHG emissions come from livestock, about 16% from the manure, the fecal matter that is left on the pasture, about 12% from the synthetic fertilizers like NPK, and about 10% from paddy rice. A single crop is contributing about 10% to the GHG emissions, and 7% comes from the manure management, and 5% from crop residue burning. So every time, as soon as we finish crop harvesting, our Delhi NCR makes noise that we are in pollution, the air quality has gone down. Recently, it was in news when one of the foreign influencers, I don't want to take name, but foreign influencers made a comment about Delhi pollution. We were in news again, and international media was looking at that. But how many of you know that the main reason of this Delhi pollution is because the crop residue management of wheat, paddy that is grown in Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh. So these are the main states that contribute to Delhi pollution. I agree. There are automobiles also, but agriculture residue burning is one of them. One of the cause for the pollution. So I'll jump directly into India. So if you see, 19.6% of GHG emissions in India comes from agriculture sector. The sector is the second biggest contributor to the GHG emissions. And as per the 2014 data, as you are seeing on the screen, so again, you see here, rice cultivation falls on the third place, synthetic fertilizers on the second place, and livestock manual fermentation is in the highest side of it. And according to that, if you see, industrial process falls on the third sector, energy sector, the electricity production falls on the first sector as per the Indian data. This is World Resource published this data. So there's a source, you can go and refer to the source also. So recently in 2023 November, Narendra Singh Tomar, the Union Minister of Agriculture, made a statement that our impact of climate change on Indian sector also, we are also a victim. Agriculture sector is also a victim. So there is a loss of agriculture land, there is a loss of crop, there is hydrometeorological calamities that are reducing our agriculture productivity. So if you see statistically, about 5.04%, 5.04 million hectares has gone into has destroyed their crop because of cyclonic storms and floods. So Vizag was one of them. So in 2021, this statement was given, this data was published, and in about 36 million hectares of was gone into hydrometeorological calamities. I meant to say because of the high temperatures, droughts, rainfall. This is the loss. and land degradation because of high usage of synthetic fertilizers, improper management of agricultural lands, or leaving it barren to without cultivating any covering it. So there is a 120 million hectares loss according to the published data. Okay, so now we'll talk about a little bit about the water resources. So why there's a requirement to talk about water resources? Because water also plays an important, again here, irrigation takes a major amount of Indian water sector. So water footprint of freshwater demand of irrigation, if you see, in 2022, it was 83%, and the projected data by 2020, it will rise to 74%. So if the units you are seeing is in cubic kilometers. So by 2050, we will be requiring about 1072 cubic kilometer of water for our irrigation purpose. Because of our raising population, we are highest populated country now in world. So according to that data, these projections were given. So what is the solution? So regenerative agriculture practices could reduce about 18% of India's agriculture emissions, which is accounting to 85.5 metric tons of carbon equivalent emissions per year. So it will positively impact community, climate, and biodiversity. This is the published data. And now I'll more specifically talk about which sector, how, where we can reduce these emissions. So I believe that most of you come from an agriculture background. So I don't want to redefine regenerative agriculture, but I'll read out the definition again for you people. Regenerative agriculture refers to the integration of sustainable farm practices and operations to reverse degradation of agricultural resources centered around soil health, main objective being the rehabilitation, conservation of nature, and related processes. So what are the processes and principles we will follow in regenerative agriculture? The main primary entry point is soil health. So the first thing we need to focus is our soil health. The soil organic carbon, which is part of the soil health, has to be improved. How it will be improved? By effective
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Asif, please mute.
Sir, okay.
Okay. So how we will improve our soil health? By improving our soil organic carbon and effective water management, carbon sequestration, increasing biodiversity, and creating sustainable food systems. I meant to say, if I say creating sustainable food system, our consumption pattern has to change. It's not about only what we cultivate and what we use for our cultivation. It is all about what we consume also. So we should be more responsible in our consumption too, and agriculture diversification. So the current practices like monoculture, rice, or wheat has to slightly taken alternates, like integrating livestock, integrating backyard poultry, integrating pisciculture into our agriculture system, and that will lead to a good outcomes of regenerative agriculture. Again, you see on the right side. So by following these process and principles of regenerative agriculture, we can actually target the outcome would be land and soil conservation, water conservation, biodiversity conservation. If I have to say what is biodiversity conservation, our main pollinators. So the main problem of productivity today, there is a loss of our pollinators. So that biodiversity has to be the main focus. Climate conservation, I mean, if I have to say what is climate conservation, so building resilience for increasing temperature, these floods or droughts. So that has to be our, that would be the sustainable food systems, as I told you. But diversification has to be done, and social and cultural diversity, we will achieve this social and cultural diversity. And if I have to say social diversity, it also meant that there's a gender diversity. Okay. So, okay, if we are talking about RA practices, so everyone wants to eat organic food. Everyone wants to eat pesticide-free food. How cost-effective it is. So if you want to eat something that is chemical-free, we have to pay a premium charge today. And for that, most of our population can't afford such kind of an good food. So to make this good food affordable to general public for consumption, we need to maintain that or follow cost-effective mitigation potentials in RA. Mainly, if I have to talk about, I come from a background where I worked on agroforestry, rice water management. So I'll specifically talk about how these cost effectiveness in rice water management and agroforestry would help, and what are their stats. So if you see on the left side, the potential carbon sequestration by 2040, there's a huge potential in agroforestry. So that is one. On the right side, if you see rice management, cropland management, though it seems to be small potential, but when you see on the cost effectiveness, they fall into the primary bit. So cost is about with an amount of 430 rupees, there's a huge carbon sequestration we can do in rice water management by using doing AWD or DSR, such kind of practices. Further, we'll talk about that practices also. But if you see on the right side, we see the cost effectiveness of rice water management specifically. Then comes the improved diet and biogas, fertigation. This process also comes. So if I have to specifically talk about agroforestry carbon sequestration potential per acre in kgs, mango would have about 14,000 kgs of carbon sequestration annually per acre. So by integrating these plantation into our regular orchards, let it be our coconut orchards. If you see onto the Srikakulam side, there are cashew nut or cocoa orchard. By integrating this kind of an plantation into regular orchard, there's a huge potential of carbon sequestration into your soils. That would obviously help your soils to rejuvenate, improve their soil organic carbon, and also improve the health of the dependent crop like cotton. And further, we'll talk about carbon farming. This will also fetch the farmer an additional income. It would be a side hustle for the farmer. Apart from his produce, this carbon credits would be one of their additions to by following these regenerative practices, by sequestering more carbon into their soils. So this data is published by Tamil Nadu Agriculture University. Water consumption by paddy according to their practices. So in the conventional practices, the water consumption per acre is about 50 lakh liters per year, per acre. So just imagine 50 lakh liters. The regular Kinley bottle, you see about a 1 liter Kinley bottle, you need to use about 50 lakh bottles of water to grow 1 acre of paddy. So that is a regular a farmer uses in a conventional practices. So our regenerative practices are more focused onto improving the water retention, and by making soil absorb more water and store water and make it available to the crop. So dry DSR can be one of the practices where water consumption gradually decreases about 39 lakh liters. And second falls with DSR with puddled soils and AWD in puddled soils. Approximately these fall into the same belt, but compared to conventional practices, this is relatively lesser. So what are the principles of regenerative agriculture? So these practices are generally followed by most of the farmers in very remote locations, but this has to be adopted by the farmers in the main cultivation practice also. Now, agriculture sector subtly, and we see corporatization of agriculture. So today, if I have to enter into Nalgonda location and see and recommend a farmer to cultivate a certain amount of paddy with a specific variety, he will not listen to me. He will not listen to the local government officials too. The main person influencing is the market person. The end rice miller, he will actually give the list of varieties he would procure from the farmer in the next coming season. So he will make the decision for the selection of these varieties. And in the similar way, he'll also make a decision. Certainly, he might not make a direct decision, but certainly indirect decision will be made by him. Kind of in productivity that farmer has to produce. So obviously, when we specifically talk about practice change, if I have to go talk to a farmer and ask him to shift to AWD, the main focus would be, sir, we can't adopt AWD because our soils are not suitable for that. The main reason I keep hearing from farmers that the soils are not suitable. I don't know who made these checks that the soil are not suitable. All the soils and mostly unpuddled soils are very much suitable for AWD. Once you don't disturb the soil, obviously it will improve soil retention, and there would not be loss of this carbon, sequestered carbon in the soils. So principle wise, minimum tillage is recommended, maintain soil cover. In Zayed also, I see a few farmers use cover crops to cover their soils, but it has to be a practice followed by majority of the farmers. Build soil CO. How soil C, I meant to say soil organic carbon. How it has to be done? It has to be done by green manuring, animal manures, adding biochar, by not burning the crop residue, sequester carbon by adding, integrating agroforestry, silvopasture, or tree crops into their regular practices, relying more on biological nutrients. Nowadays, even corporate companies started making these bioproducts. It is good to see that the farmers started using these bioproducts, and there is a lot of awareness that has been created on ground. That is good. It's a good sign, because that will, the main biological biota that is present in the soil, that will unlock the relation between the root and the soil. So today, our nutrient use efficiency by our plant is about 36%. If I made a statement that our nutrient use efficiency is 36%, it meant that if we put 1 kg of our any synthetic fertilizer into soil, only about 36% of that 1 kg is being used by plant. The rest is going in vain. So there's a lot of subsidy that is going into this fertilizers from the government. It is the tax money. You, me, the farm pay tax for these subsidies, and about a majority part is going into vain. It is draining into nearby ponds. So that has to be accounted. So if we need to increase this nutrient use efficiency, we have to focus on improving our soil biota. Again, that is possible only when you rely on biological nutrient cycles, and the plant diversity has to be increased. So whenever I go into the fields, a farmer, every time he is so much obsessed with these weeds. Whenever he sees weeds, a normal weed doesn't harm at all. There are weeds that will harm the productivity, but there are weeds that doesn't harm, and that would actually cover the crop. But he wants to get rid of it just because it looks untidy, and it would be a precious matter for him to put that to see that weed in his field. So there is a lot of psychological change that has to be brought, and it has to be done by the agriculture extensions. I would not say it is a duty of the government extension officer only. It is a duty of you, me, everyone working in the sector. Though we might belong to some corporate, we might be in the business of synthetic fertilizer, we might be in business of a seed or any other input or output crop. We might be a procurement company also, but still we need to do this awareness for the farmer to actually understand and create awareness about what is good, what is not. I agree with coming from such a good experience, the farmer might understand the importance of soil, but to get his stomach fed, he practices what is profitable for him. rather than what is profitable to his soil, he practices what is profitable to his daily livelihood. So that has to be slightly twisted, slightly mentored, so that it is a sustainable practices. When I say sustainable practices, all our people, environment, as well as the economics should fit in correctly into this triangle. So when I was in my master's, because I am much focused in sustainability, one of my professors, she kept it very well that the sustainability is dependent on 3 P's. It is people, paisa, and prakriti. So this people, paisa, and prakriti, when the balance is maintained, there is a sustainability approach. Yes. Now we'll directly jump into carbon credits. So we practice this regenerative agriculture. It is good. Farmer is passionate about improving soil health, but we can actually scale up this regenerative agriculture on a large scale when there is an added value to it. So how this added value comes into the picture when you pay for it. So when you incentivize a good practice, that's how the farmer will start using these practices or scaling up these practices. So carbon credits is one of approach that will incentivize this farmer by leveraging this reduction of GHG emissions by practicing all the good practices, let it be water management, soil health, crop diversification, or use of biological products in there, or soil amendments like biochar or green manuring, cover crops. This will actually has to be incentivized. There are a lot of Western governments that made policies on it, and carbon credits, carbon markets, fortunately, will help us bring into that. I currently work in this sector only. So I come from an organization that is currently working on this carbon market. So I'll specifically talk about my project a little bit, which is on carbon credits. So I am currently running a project named Kanika. So Kanika, why the name Kanika was given? Kanika means gold. So we are treating each and every carbon as a gold coin that will be present, give some extra income to the farmer. So that practice has to be promoted, or good practice has to be leveraged in the form of carbon credit. That is the main target. So we are operational throughout India. Indigo is one of the pioneers in this carbon market. So fortunately, we just started working in South India. It has been 9 months. So there are a few of my team people also joined this meeting. Yes. So each ton of a carbon reduction that has been done in the farmer field will fetch 1 carbon credit. So specifically, there are slides dedicated to this carbon credits. I'll slightly introduce carbon market to you, and then later, if there's any requirement, people can reach out to me, and then we can specifically talk about the depths of carbon credits, the economics of it, how the business model of it, how does it work, and the science part of it. So these are the carbon registries specifically. So these are the international agencies like Vera, Gold Standard, American Carbon Registry, Climate Action Reverse, the other organizations also. These are a little bit familiar carbon registries. These are the people who audit the process of carbon credit making, and they issue the carbon credits to the farmer. As of now, we don't have any carbon issuance that has been done in India, but there are several organizations working in this area. Indigo is one of them, and we are also very closely working with Vera and Gold Standard for Project Kanika. So if someone is interested to know more about this registry, the process of carbon credits, I'm open for it. We can later talk in the question and answer round, or I can make one more presentation, or personally you can reach out to me. Okay, so now I wanted to slightly relate this regenerative agriculture to our SDG goals also. So why SDG goals has to be taken into consideration? Because we are about a 5 harvest away from achieving our sustainable development goals. So we are getting closer to our milestones. So we need to focus more on this sustainable development goals by following regenerative agriculture. You can see the highlighted sustainable goals. So there is no poverty because there is an additional income that is coming to the farmer, and his soil health will be improving. So zero hunger. So food security would be achieved directly, and there's an economic growth that is there. So climate action will be addressed directly. The major sustainable development goal that is being addressed is climate change here. And partnerships. So under regenerative agriculture, there's a lot of partnerships that are working as of now. Niti Aayog, NABARD is an zonal point for this carbon markets for India. Okay. Now I'm open for question and answer round for general people.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Prithvi, for the detailed presentation. So participants, you can start asking your questions either through mic or you can post it in the chat box. I'll start with Mr. Ravi. Mr. Ravi, if you have any questions, you can ask it or you can post in chat box. I'll go to Mr. Anil Borancha. Okay. Mr. Praveen, Sai Kumar, Shiv Kumar. Please unmute yourself and ask your questions, please.
Okay. I see a lot of people from my team, so
Okay.
they are direct. They might directly approach me for questions. Yeah.
Okay.
So probably that's the reason.
So I'll take up the questions from my side.
Yeah.
So how does regenerative agriculture improve soil health and carbon sequestration?
Okay. Right. So as a part of regenerative agriculture, as I was talking about, if I have to specifically talk about agroforestry. So under agroforestry, you focus on covering the crop, number one. There is an additional plantation you are bringing into the picture, number two. And number three is the soil amendments. So you keep adding biochar or you cover the crop with additional crops like green manuring crops or navadanya that will be implemented in these orchards. So it will improve the soil organic carbon sequestered, number one. As I have shown you the graph, the potential of in agroforestry is huge for carbon sequestration compared to any other sector, any other other activity. So that has to be number one choice. If a farmer wants to practice agroforestry for carbon credit or regenerative agriculture, agroforestry would be an entry point.
Okay. Next question is, what are the most effective carbon farming practices for small scale farmers?
Okay. So again, this differs from crop to crop, but most of the small scale farmers, because of the government incentive, they practice paddy. So if you see in South India, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, they practice double rice paddy. And there are very few districts. And if you see India-wide also, recently, about majority of Indian districts also cultivate paddy. So I would recommend alternate wetting and drying for an entry point for carbon farming in paddy, and then switch to dry DSR. I meant to say the direct seeded rice, where you place the fertilizer along with the seed and do proper water management that would improve the soil sequestration as well as reduce methane. So in paddy, the reduction of methane also happens. But if you focus on alternate wetting and drying, that's one of the easiest practices any farmer can practice. If some farmer is attending the session today, probably next hour, probably this is in irrigation time also. Generally, farmers start irrigating in the evenings around 4:30 or something. So they can immediately go to the field and then start this AWD practices. It is called intermittent flooding. You give irrigation for about 5 days, then stop irrigation. Again, you repeat the irrigation process. So you don't flood continuously. That will automatically reduce the methane emissions.
Yeah. So how can farmers measure the carbon sequestration impact of their practices?
Okay. So measuring, if you have to do scientifically, there are there should be an research person only. But if I have to farmer have to measure, the easiest tangible practice is touch your soil. So just touch your soil. If you feel that your soil is spongy, that means there's a good soil organic carbon. Your soil has a good bud density. So that is an indicator that there's a good amount of carbon sequestered in your soil.
Okay. And are there government incentives or carbon credits available for regenerative farming?
Now, as of now, government are not giving any incentive directly for carbon farming, but they're giving incentive for ZBNF, zero budget natural farming. So natural farming can also be treated as an part of regenerative agriculture only. It's a main component in regenerative agriculture, and that will fetch carbon credits directly. So there are government policies that will fund zero budget natural farming. So that's one. And second thing, there are aligned industries also who are focused on these water management practices. There are few industries like Netafim. They are trying to do some incentivization of drip usage in paddy and sugarcane. So these are also regenerative practices only. So there are few practices, but in South India, in Telangana, there is no incentive as such. In Andhra Pradesh, there is ZBNF.
Okay. And what are some cost-effective ways to transition from conventional to regenerative agriculture?
Okay, so very cost-effective. I would say almost free of cost is don't burn your residue. Number one. If you have to really switch to not burning your residue, please incorporate into your soils. So that is the easiest way, cost effective. You anyways till your soil, right? Please till it along with your crop residue. Don't burn it. So that was the easiest cost effective, no cost involved.
Yeah, okay. Next question. Just 1 second. Yeah. How do cover crops and no-till farming contribute to carbon farming?
Okay. So no-till, zero tillage, zero tillage maize or zero tillage any oil seed or wheat would not disturb the soil. So it would improve soil organic carbon, sequester more soil. So that is one practices that would fetch carbon credits. If I have to specifically quantify how much a carbon credit can be generated from a no-tilled soil, it is about a 0.5 carbon credit. So if you are practicing paddy and wheat, paddy with DSR followed by zero tillage wheat, it would fetch you approximately about a 0.9 credit. So annual, I'm talking about. So in Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, most of the farmers, they are registered. Our projects also are running there. There are farmers who are practicing this zero tillage and getting good amount of for this carbon credits.
Right. Okay. And what role do livestock integration play in the regenerative agriculture?
Okay. So fodder crops. So fodder crops, by covering the crop in orchards, specifically in agroforestry, you can incorporate fodder crops like Napier or super Napier is one of them. So if whenever you integrate these fodder crops, it will obviously you can't give it to your livestock and then again it grows. So your land is covered always. Number one. Number two, proper management of the fecal matter of these livestock also gives you carbon credits. So in the baseline, if you have to record the data under baseline, that improper management of manure, improper management of your methane coming from biogas is cow dung. So that is the baseline. Then you develop a practice where you are properly using this fermented cow dung for other purpose or manure. So that would fetch you some carbon credits. Number two, recently I was going through one of the articles that open grazing will improve your soil health. So whenever livestock is openly grazing in your field, it also drops the manure directly on your field. Number one, and two, it keeps walking on the soil. So the upper layer of the soil is slightly disturbed, where water retention increases. So there is one YouTube video also on this, how open farming, open grazing will help improving soil health. And there, it would be slightly ridiculous, but I'll say in rural areas, I've seen farmers paying for these goat keepers to make the goats stay in their fields for a night, so that it drops the fecal matter and it would improve their soil health. And they pay for it. The farmer pay for it.
Okay. Right. Yeah. How can farmers balance productivity with sustainability in carbon farming?
Sorry, can you please?
One sec. How can farmers balance productivity with sustainability in carbon farming?
Okay, in carbon farming. So
yeah,
I would not say directly switch into biologics or directly switch the practice. As I told you, integrating biologics along with your regular synthetic fertilizers would obviously help fetch good yields as well as carbon credits. So during the discussion, I was talking about how these biological products will unlock the relation between the root zone of the plant with the soil nutrient intake. So it would improve the soil nutrient efficiency. So whenever the soil nutrient efficiency is improved, the drainage decreases. So, and nitrous oxide emissions are reduced indirectly. So that would account. There are experiments that to establish the evidences correctly. So even we are running that experiment. So whoever are there in this carbon farming will validate that through their experiments, through their models, simulation models I'm talking about, and then record this data, and that would directly fetch the farmer some carbon credits.
Okay. And what challenges do farmers face when adopting carbon farming solutions?
Okay. Not exactly related to carbon markets, but the practices. For example, when I was talking about switch to dry DSR, there is a huge weed problem because of the improper management of this agricultural land. So there is a recommendation given by International Price Research Institute, and there are state universities, they recommend, even state government and agriculture departments recommend that the pre-emergence and the post-emergence weed management has to be done whenever you practice that direct seeded rice. Let it be broadcasted rice in the dry soils or the machine zone. So in North India, if you go in Uttar Pradesh or in Haryana, in Punjab, you see in integrated system where fertilizer application is done along the seed application, and there is herbicide tank also mounted on this machine. So 3 practices are done together. So because there is a problem of weed in dry DSR. So whenever farmer wants to adopt these regenerative practices of dry DSR, there are weed problems specifically. And if you specifically want to talk about infrastructure in South India, if a farmer coming from Ballari in Karnataka, if he has to practice carbon farming or in dry DSR practice, there is no machinery available. So we don't manufacture. There are no laser land leathers. There are a lot of agriculture aligned people who didn't even see the laser land leveler until now. So whenever I talk about this modern technology, we as in South, because the Green Revolution wasn't executed directly. So there is a gap. So infrastructure availability is there in South India, and there are technical problems like weed management. There are technical problems like irrigation availability. For example, carbon farming, if paddy dry DSR has to be followed, he has to have a dedicated water resource. He can't be dependent on rain-fed, or he can't be dependent on canal irrigation, because we don't know when the government would open canal and when it would close. So he should have that dedicated water resources. So that are some policy-related challenges, infrastructure-related challenges, and technical challenges. Apart from that, there is a lot of farm involvement that farmer has to give. Today, if you see most of the South Indian farmers, I would not say most, but relatively a good number of farmers are agriculture is a second business for them. There are mostly they have a main job, and this is a secondary job, just for house purpose, or it would be a side hustle for them. So they don't have time to dedicate so much of time to the agriculture, their second job. So that is one of the reasons. These are the problems that if a farmer has to adopt, he has to be little conscious. Initially, we would call pulses as lazy man crop. Now, paddy is a lazy man crop, because you need not stay there for long. Even electricity is free in Telangana. So most of the farmer doesn't switch off their borewells on. It keeps pouring. The only time the bore gets switched off whenever the coils burn. So that is the only time it burns. Again, the farmer the next day gets it repaired and keep it on mode for another few days. So these are few challenges that should be tackled on a policy front. There are few challenges that has to be tackled from the farmer. Yeah, I see one question from Vinny. He asked about role of biochar in carbon sequestration. So biochar is a kind of an activated carbon, already a direct carbon you're putting into soil. So you are locking black gold. It is like black gold. This black gold will fetch money. You are locking it in your soil almara, and that will give you returns in the form of carbon credits, because you're sequestering this biochar, this black gold, into your soils. And obviously this biochar, because in the activated carbon, it will store lot of nutrients in it, and it would act as a slow release fertilizer one. And it is also a breeding ground for soil biota. It acts as like a breeding ground. It stores, it will become home for a lot of soil biota.
Okay. Now we have the last question. Are there any successful case studies in carbon farming in India?
Yes. So there are successful models, but issuance is not done yet. We are still in process. There are a lot of other organizations also working in carbon farming. They are doing very good job. But we have to still wait probably another for 1 year to actually see who is successful, is not.
Right. Okay. Okay, so before we end, I would like to check once again with the participants. Anyone would like to ask any questions? I'll just wait for 2 more minutes. From Vineet. best way to adopt a regenerative practice in large scale?
So water management is one of them. I would say water management practice has to be done, and it is in a very efficient way to do it on large scale. Number one, and number two, we were talking about biochar. So there is a lot of scope whenever you use this biochar. You can buy biochar, and there are industries that are getting established in India to produce this biochar. So that is one of the way to improve soil health. And if you are specifically talking about DSR machinery, you need to have a good amount of machinery like laser land levelers. There are organizations coming up to rent this also. So in South India also there are organizations who came up to rent this infrastructure to the farmer in large scale. And personally, I have seen farmers adopting regenerative agriculture practices in about 70 acres. 50 acres in Telangana, in nearby districts like Nalgonda, Nizamabad.
Okay. So yeah, I'm assuming no more questions from the participants. So now we have to, yeah. So now we have come to end of question round. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we'd like to thank you for a very detailed presentation answering all the questions in depth. So we'll be ending this meeting now. Thank you, Mr. Prithvi Ram and his team, and all the participants for joining this meeting and making it successful. Thank you all.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for your patience. And if you have any doubts, probably you can reach out on this forum on agriinformation.com. There's a forum, and you can become a member and question there. Probably we can answer.
Sure, and we'll be uploading this recording also. So we'll share the recording also.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.